Gamers, it is Thursday and time for some more modern action. I'm of course NanMans, bringing you guys some commentary here today and every Monday and Thursday with this week Yawgmoth Combo versus Grixis Oculus. I said Yawgmoth Combo instead of just like the normal, just traditional Yawgmoth that you might see, because it is that kind of Golgari good stuff combo shenanigans. It runs Soul Trader combo, being able to do Gravecrawler stuff, but it also has the Undying stuff. So it's kind of our resident Yawgmoth player. She's been kind of perfecting the green-black shenanigans over there. So we get to see her pilot this week. And then the Grixis Oculus, we've seen this featured on camera before, but it is a cool kind of twist to the traditional Oculus style with Frog and stuff like that. But hey, we get access to red, we get access to things like Faithless Looting, we get access to things like Dragon Race Channeler to kind of help us set up for a reanimation on our Oculus and bringing that back from the graveyard, utilizing things like Unearth. So this should be a really exciting matchup. We do have a little back and forth between these players of like going, hey, I've tried to cast this Wall of Roots and do this, and then it's like, well, I'm considering still. I got to resolve my spell. I did it in response, so you don't get to start spamming it. And we see a big dump of the board here. So 4 creatures already out on turn 2. You're probably feeling really good if you are a Yawgmoth player. On the other side, our Grixis Oculus player is now going to be basically on catch-up duty, where they're going to be sitting here and trying to set themselves up the best they can. We see a Faithless here, but it looks like they decided not to cast that, trying to set up maybe for Orcish Bowmaster or something to flash in, or maybe they've got a counter spell and they're going to be utilizing that to kind of help them out. We do have a little Pokesies with a Young Wolf here to kind of set things up. Now, if you've never played against the Yawgmoth deck or you haven't seen it in action, the goal of it is to try to assemble multiple Undying creatures, usually 2 of them with Yawgmoth and a Drain effect. So that's like Blood Artist, that's our Marionette Apprentice, those type effects, Zulaport Cutthroat, right? It's all kind of redundancy within it there. Right now we see the Walking Ballista, and you might be wondering, why is it running Walking Ballista? Well, most of the lists are running a Soul Cauldron to kind of basically turn the rest of your creatures into Walking Ballistas and do some shenanigans like that. But a mainboard Ghost Vacuum is really cool for our Oculus player. This is one of those things that there's so much powerful graveyard stuff going around that a card like Ghost Vacuum mainboard actually doesn't really take away from what you're trying to do as a deck, and it just kind of helps protect you even in game 1 before you get into sideboard, especially if you're finding yourself bringing in certain cards again and again and again, like every single matchup. It might be that time to go, well, maybe there is a slot and a world where I just kind of shave on some of my numbers. Maybe I drop down 1 less Consider and put in a Ghost Vacuum in its place. But here's the Faithless Looting going to come down. We'll start to set ourselves up and hopefully try to kind of set ourselves into some Oculus going to the graveyard and trying to go for a Unearth here. And we do pitch 2 Oculus there. Do we get the Unearth? Another Faithless Looting, so no yet, but we're looking. Drawing 2, discarding 2. Oh, we do get the Unearth off of that. Okay. Harbinger of the Seas is going to get pitched. Yeah, it's like non-basic lands while your opponent's sitting there with a bunch of basics, so Harbinger is not really what we need. But there's the Unearth. And this is why this deck, or any variation of the Oculus package, is so strong. The Unearth ability to just kind of bring back a 3-drop, and you have a 5/5 flyer that now starts to manifest Dread at the beginning of your opponent's upkeep. All right, some Surveil action going to take place here on the end step, but so far we're in a good spot. Like, it's pretty even between, yes, we've done 10 damage to the Grixis Oculus player, but they've also done a lot of that damage to themselves. We've seen some variations of this Grixis Oculus list actually run Death Shadow as well and just kind of pivot it, or even have it in the sideboard and play it post when people bring in a bunch of graveyard hate. You kind of pivot into almost a new deck. All right, there's our Manifest. So in the tank a little bit here as our Yawgmoth player. So yeah, I hope you guys have been enjoying all of our content. If you guys have missed it, we did have some more gameplay and some unboxing stuff for you guys to see, because we do sprinkle in some content on Saturdays. So if you have not yet, consider subscribing to the channel here. But we got a Grxis, which is a great way to kind of break a little bit down of your opponent's big stuff. But Force of Negation's trying to get used here. So here's the problem, though. Force of Negation counters target non-creature spell. Grxis, when it's not on the battlefield, is considered a creature. So you can't actually use Force of Negation to stop Grxis here. So a little bit of shenanigans. I mean, you know, again, some of these little nuanced mistakes happen from time to time. You just kind of get sucked into it. Oh, I'm trying to cast a Planeswalker. Guess what? You're not casting that Planeswalker anymore because of Force of Negation. But Grxis is the exception to that rule. So a little bit of nuance shenanigans with that. But, you know, interesting. I like, if that happened and resolved, we're losing the Oculus here. Right, swing for damage, still not being able to do much. Grixis player still at 10. Another Yawgmoth going to come out. All right, end of turn. We are going to be eating the Dragon Rage Channeler here. Setting ourselves up to kind of build up. I don't expect us to get to casting it, but hey, utilize it while we got it. All right, actually put creatures under it instead of nothing. All right, looking through the graveyard. Maybe, I mean, there is, I think, another Oculus in there, so we could be able to unearth something else. Maybe we're considering flashing back a Faithless Looting here. Also, this list in particular runs Murktide. A lot of other lists have started to shave off of Murktides. I actually like it a lot. You know, even if you're running like a 2 of in the list or even a 1 of, like, I think 2 is a solid number to be running, because that high synergy with Psychic Frog that you can just like kill somebody. Like, we've seen that on camera before in this sort of matchup where you can just be like, all right, swing in, I'll exile a couple extra cards to give my frog flying, even though I'm not attacking with my frog, and those happen to be instants and sorceries, so now I get to put more +1 counters on Murktide. So, like, I like having high synergy cards in a deck. But let's see. Oh, it is the Murktide. Okay, so Murktide's going to come out here, and we delve away 5. So here's an 8/8 flyer. So that is quite a big deal. We don't go to combat here. Interesting. I guess we're just using it as a wall. So we put a counter in Walking Ballista, killing off one of our Wall of Roots in order to do this, and now we're going to remove all these counters and clean up it. So I guess it doesn't really matter. No matter if we swung it or not, we would have lost our Oculus there. All right, Yawgmoth player, plenty of mana. We're hoping to be able to draw into a tutor type effect. So that's Court of Calling, Green Sun Zenith. Green Sun Zenith doesn't really help us as much here because we have all of the green creatures, and it only lets you tutor for green creatures, where, you know, Court of Calling is really what we want to be able to do. So we're sacrificing Yawgmoth. We have an Undying trigger on the stack, which will be eaten by the Ghost Vacuum. And Geralt's Messenger are going to come out here, draining our opponent down by 2. I like the Geralt's Messenger. I'm a big fan of it. It's the, like, reverse opposite secret lair there for, like, left-handeds or whatever it's called. I love seeing all these, like, super cool art. There's so many secret lairs out there that I've missed that it's like I'll see them every now and again and be like, oh, man, I wish I'd been paying attention to that one. Filter for a frog. And, oh, are we going to see the synergy? Is this it? Psychic Frog and Murktide together. Not much in the instant and sorcerer because, of course, we did have to delve away 5 other cards there. But getting the ability to start draining cards. Like, we are a little bit worried about what we're starting to see here. The fact that we have Ghost Vacuum, though, it gives us that, like, window of opportunity to prevent our opponent from comboing, though. There's 8. And we are going to do the frog jump here. All right, give it flying. Let's make it 9 total damage, dropping our Yawgmoth player down to 10. All right. Uncounterable Yawgmoth. Bring the beats. Here's a 3-2 and a 1-1. So 4 damage coming across. Yeah, I feel like we just have to block here, right? Blocking Geralt's Messenger. Depending on what we have in hand, we could pitch it and do like a trade and then eat it, but we're kind of fine with just like absorbing it, I guess. All right, Undying. Do we put... So we sacrifice the young wolf. Comes back. We did not put a -1 counter on anything there. So one thing to note, you can put a -1 counter and start shrinking the Murktide down a little bit. Oh, we have a cord. Cord for 5. We're going to try to put a stop to things. But, oh, the last card is a counter spell. That's really bad. Really bad for our Yawgmoth player. Now they're going to have to kind of go through it a little bit more and drain. And they've already tapped all their creatures. So we've basically lost our outs here. Exiling this. So we're going to do a little bit more, drawing a couple more. But, yeah, basically, cords are kind of our outs there. We're not really seeing enough to help us since we already tapped all our creatures with the Convoke. Couldn't really do much there for game number 1. Now we're getting into the sideboard game here. So this should be interesting to see. Post board, what do we go for? How do we set things up? So, ooh, Oculus player is had to mold a 5 for this match. And a Leyline of the Void. Again, we talk about how much graveyard matters right now in Modern as we're getting ourselves set up for our next ban list in about a month or so. Come March, we will be seeing some banning. And we did have, of course, the big Modern events that were taking place over the past weekend, like regionals and stuff like that. So, like, a lot of really good events that were taking place. But Ghost Vacuum is pretty solid. It helps us out. So Star City Games was holding their event. Amulet was able to get first place for that, which is awesome to be able to see. It's been a while since we featured Amulet on the channel. But the big one to note, oh, Grxis is coming out again. That's a really scary. You're sitting here fighting against a Leyline and already an early Grxis like this. That's scary. But the big winner from the weekend, our other S tier deck that we talked about when we went through the meta breakdown, was the Grinding Station, the Through the Breach decks. A lot of people were sitting here and speculating, are we going to have the second card to get banned in Modern twice? Of course, we do have, Golgari Grave Troll was the card that got banned, unbanned, and then banned again, right? Banned twice in Modern. And people are like, are people going to just ban and get rid of our Mox Opal again? Is it just too good? I feel like they're going to get rid of Underworld Breach before they get rid of Mox Opal. Because it's like Mox Opal doesn't... It makes the Grinding Station deck stronger, but all the other decks that are artifact-based decks are not like top-tier decks, right? Hardened Scales is sweet, Affinity sweet, Lantern Control sweet, but they're not like winning tournaments and things like that, where the Through the Breach deck is definitely popping up. Like, Through the Breach was sitting at the same percentage of the meta on day 1 as Energy, and we know how popular Energy is. Both those were sitting at about 20%. This is specifically from like the Star City event. But day 2, it's things looked a little different. Day 2, 28% of the meta was Breach, so it just continued to do well and dominate through it. So I expect something from that deck to go. I wouldn't be surprised if we see something from the energy list. Like I've been talking about the Guide of Souls as a bit of a problem, but you know, whatever. We'll see. We'll see come March. We can do better and more speculations as we get closer to that. But let's get back into this specific match. Marionette Apprentice. We talked about those drain effects. This is one of them here. Whenever another creature or an artifact is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, each opponent loses a life. Now there is going to be some life total discrepancies coming up where we're tracking the life total here based on those triggers. But if you're missing them, which we do see some missed triggers here of the drain effect, then that is one thing to kind of keep in mind. Combat, let's try to swing the frog in. This is I'm attacking Gris. Throw this in the way. Just kidding, throw the servo. Throwing the servo in front of it, so go to blocks, but before damage, let's convoke and wait a minute. We don't have 3 green to do it. Do we? Hold on. 2 green creatures. Servo's an artifact, and Marionette's a black creature. So we're trying to cord for 1, but yeah, convoke, so you can wait a minute. And now we're going to hit it with a surgical extraction. Yeah, so convoke. Each creature you tap while casting the spell pays 1 or 1 mana of that creature's color. But we only have 2 green. You need 3 green to cast it. Oh, trickeries happening here. Well, that's okay. Gravecrawler's going to come out. Gravecrawler plus Marionette Apprentice. That's 2 cards of our 3-card combo that we need. We're just missing a Soul Trader here, and then we're off to the races. Basically, lock the game and win. Grixis players kind of setting themselves up. So now we go boom, block with this creature. Finally dies after the convoke. I minus the life total point here off the Marionette because the servo died. But we did not get to... The players did not track that because listening to the audio and things like that, you can hear them do life total checks at some point, and they missed that one. So I'm tracking it as if they didn't because we're eyes in the sky. We can sit here and track the life totals like that. Again, we don't have judges directly sitting at the feature match area at our LGS. Players, of course, are able to call judges and do things like that. Yes, we do have a little bit of loosey-goosey play, but this is kind of the plays that you should expect to see at an LGS. If you start going to tournaments, you're going to see some stuff like that, especially, longer, grindier games or multiple matches in a row. Players start to make a little bit of extra mistakes. So it's very important to start learning cards, not only in your deck, but what your opponent's deck does. Like in this case, you can't cast Horde of Calling unless you have 3 green creatures if you're going to be convoking it. Most of the time, that's not really an issue. It's like a non-issue because with Wall of Roots and young wolves, delighted halflings, there's so many green creatures within the deck that it's usually not a real factor. But it's okay. Mistakes happen. That's why we're putting these games on camera so not only we learn, but everybody gets to learn, right? We want everybody to be able to improve their gameplay here. All right, so we did a little bit of shenanigans going, -1 counters, +1 counters, and right now we end up netting +1 on the frog. All right, now we got to start drawing some cards. Untap, upkeep, draw. Let's get going with our turn. We've got, it looks like Green Sun Zenith in hand. Uptick and Grist. So yeah, we're setting ourselves up to like rebuild here as a Yawgmoth player. We basically had to blow our board up to try to kind of do some shenanigans and fighting through things, but we're still leading the charge in the advantage meter. We have Yawgmoth out. We have Gris. There's the Green Sun Zenith for, how much are we doing for? 1? Search your library for a green creature card, convert a mana cost X, and then shuffle it in. So we're going to go find a young wolf off that. Other choices, like you can always search for 0. That is an option with the deck. And if you're running Green Sun Zenith, you should be running some number of Dryad Arbors because of that potential play of like a turn 1, basically ramp a land. All right, so yeah, Young Wolf. So we're missing one more Undying Creature and a Drain effect here to be able to kind of start to do stuff. There's a Drain effect. Ooh, Ghost Vacuum. Duh. We can't do the normal stuff. What do we need? 3 Undying Creatures to do this, or we just assemble enough damage that we'll be okay. Yeah, go to turn. Yeah, there's a couple. The Ghost Vacuum with lands under it and enchantments aren't irrelevant, but sometimes players like to set aside stuff. Anytime any of my cards get exiled, I always just put them underneath of whatever is exiling them. Unless it's like exile your whole graveyard or whatever, like a leyline type effect. It's just like, well, that doesn't matter. I'm just going to set these to the left of my graveyard. All right, we're just sort of still trying to assemble something with this frog, but not really. We're not connecting at all. And because the Leyline of the Void is out, we aren't able to draw any cards. We're not able to kind of push for damage, and we're just we're stuck. Just sort of, land go. All right, we had to mold a 5. We put together a pretty decent setup here to try to go and like capitalize on it, but we're not able to do much else yet. All right, there's a halfling. Okay, we'll trade off those 2, kill off the frog there, so clearing the path, and then follow with an Agatha Soul Cauldron. So now we can remove Gris, because again, when Gris is not on the battlefield, Gris becomes a creature. So we can be able to turn all of our creatures that have +1 counters on them into planeswalkers. We don't want to do it because with the Ghost Vacuum there, like we're basically trying to like find a window of opportunity. So we're going to do a sack with the Young Wolf, and that's going to get eaten with the Undying trigger off the Ghost Vacuum, but that allows us that window of opportunity to grab the Gris. Because if we tried to grab Gris first, the Ghost Vacuum could in response target that and eat that before. So like there is that little element of the stack matters for graveyards now, with 2 exile type effects. But now we can start assembling quite a few creatures, and it really is just sort of we're in wrap up mode. We're basically just assembling enough damage and enough threats to go. Our opponent's never going to cast an Oculus. Our opponent's never going to be able to, cast a Murktide. So we're basically just building up a big enough board to kill them. And again, the life total says 8 here, but I believe that the players had the Grixis Oculus at like 10 or something like that. I think there was like 2 missed triggers. But now, boom, Blood Artist is gonna get bigger. And more insects come out. All right, 4 damage coming across. Oh yeah, so yeah, they did do a life total check, and the Grixis player thinks that they are at 6. Yeah, we're not even up to 6 mana to bring back a Young Wolf. All right, in the tank a little bit, just checking things. Oh, Force Negation doesn't help us. And that'll do it. All right, for anyone that's still watching, thanks so much. Glad you're still with us going into game number 3 here in this best of 3. What will happen now? Hoping for basically no ley lines. I mean, if you're on like an Oculus list, what are you doing to fight against ley line post board? Do you take out more of your Oculuses and that package? Do you have sideboard cards that'll help you against that? All right, turn 1, Delighted Halfling. And we have a Surveil land coming out. So no ley line this game. I guess there's still the option to draw into and hard cast it and do all that stuff, but... yeah, Delighted Halfling is like surprisingly sleeper MVP against blue decks. Because if they're running counter spells and stuff like that, and you're like, hey, I'm going to make sure that this legendary thing is uncounterable. So that's like Soul Cauldron, that's Yawgmoth, right? These like really impactful cards. Grist, right? Whatever it is, we're leaving on top. We're okay with it. All right. Got some sideboard text here. Sync to Stupor is in hand. We'll be able to fetch and drop down a frog. So turn 2 frog is really what you want to be seeing, knowing that kind of like we need to get out there. We need to start pushing for damage. Are we seeing a grist? Yeah, there it is. Turn 2 grist. Do we play it safe and just uptick, or do we just like spend our resources and shoot the frog? Yep. Okay, so we're gonna clear the path here. Ooh, we're gonna pitch an Oculus to frog in response to that. So that's kind of just like telegraphing our next play of saying, hey, we're gonna unearth that Oculus. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, it says, I know that you're cheating. It's like both players are playing cheaty reanimation stuff. He says, your cards come back for free. What do you mean I'm cheating? Undying triggers and all that. All right, so again, Oculus, we get to cheat it. We don't have to worry about exiling 6 cards when we cast it because we returned it from our graveyard. We're not casting it. We're going to manifest, dread, put this here. Of course, it is a 2/2 creature that we can flip it face up for its mana cost. Let's make another insect and do some milling. Ooh. We hit a grist here. Or, I guess, Haywire might. Like, there's only so many insects that the deck runs. Dryad Arbor comes out. Sweet white border. Also sweet art style. Yeah, it is a land, and you see here, because it doesn't have like any flavor text or anything like that, that white border version does, but it is a land, but it is also a creature. So it does have summoning sickness, so you cannot tap it immediately when it enters play. So if you're sitting there being like, oh, I'm going to use it and cast a chord or cast something else, nope, you got to wait a turn. Young Wolf. Gravecrawler, just kidding. Young Wolf is not coming in. There's the Young Wolf. I mean, it's all the same. Doesn't matter what order it's coming in. They're both coming out on the battlefield here. End of turn. Let's consider. He says, I'd like to put some glasses on my eyeball. Oh, we get the chord here. 1, 2, 3, 4 cards. And they are going to be plenty of greens. We don't have to worry about not being able to cast chord this time. Chording for 2. So we're going to use our last mana by tapping the Dryad Arbor for the Convoke. And yep, so chording for 2 to get a Blood Artist. So a drain effect to help us out. So here's the, we've talked about this previously in other videos, but when you're fighting against the Yawgmoth deck, if you have your surgicals, if you have your ways to fight the graveyard, fighting and worrying about the drain effects is the way to go. Yes, the Undying, like if you're able to, like you've got the Ghost Vacuums and things like that. Oh, wait a minute. Before damage, I'm going to hit you for 5. So here's that flip we talked about. It had the manifest, so you get to be able to do this. So now you're setting yourself up. Double upkeep manifestation. Boom, boom, boom. Pretty solid. The thing to worry about, though, is there it is. There's the Soul Trader. We have no responses. Hey, guess what? It's not Legacy, so we're not doing any Force of Wills. Well, let's sacrifice this, pay 1 life, but guess what? We have our Blood Artist, so we don't actually lose a life, and we're going to do this a million times and just drain you out. Ooh. Another one! Yet another Oculus face down, so that was cool. It's just all the Oculus kind of stayed together there. Yeah, they were all clumped together for there. That was interesting. I think, like, again, that's the fun part about the Yawgmoth deck is that you can kind of just combo and win out of nowhere sometimes. I mean, we got to see the setup, right? It was that slow incremental. Here's a Gravecrawler. Here's a Yawgmoth. Here's a Blood Artist. I basically am presenting 2 potential lines to kill you with. Which one am I going to go for? And we did have the Sink the Stupor, so we could have done some countering of some triggered stuff, but we get to see a little bit of what these players were able to bring in and take out, so we're seeing some of that now. Of course, pretty much all the deck lists are up on our Mox Field. If you have not seen the link for that, you can check that out, follow us there. But also, if you are not seeing a specific list, leave a comment, let us know. We'll be able to add it up and let you know when that list is available for you to be able to check out. Yeah, quite a few of our sideboard stuff. Seeing, what's that? Shoot the Sheriff. Yeah, Drown the Lock. I guess Force of Negation. A lot of good choices here to come on out. But that is it for our Thursday episode. Thanks so much for everybody tuning in and watching. We appreciate you guys following along, subscribing, doing all that good stuff as we bring you more modern coverage every Monday and Thursday. But that's going to do it for us. Thanks so much for tuning in and watching, everyone. And I'll see you all next game.